Welcome to the Heart for God podcast. With many years of experience pastoring and helping to start churches, Dr. Jim Townsley has some practical and biblical advice that can be a great help to you and your ministry. On this podcast, Dr. Townsley and other guests with special expertise cover a variety of topics. His goal is to help you lead your church to be a healthy, strong, and balanced ministry, and for your family to be happy, healthy, and living for the Lord.
Hey, thanks for joining us on a podcast today. Today I am in Hirosaki, Japan. Yes, and we just drove down after the service in Amore, Japan with my son-in-law, and we are here at Hirosaki Baptist Church. And I have with me a pastor who's just started the church, and it's Brother James Scott. And why don't you introduce yourself and tell me about your family and a little bit about where you came from?
Well, like you said, my name is James Scott. I grew up in Texas as a bus kid, and I attended church for about a year before I realized that I needed Christ and got saved. And it was soon after that I was called to preach. And then when I got to Bible college, I started to notice that there's just certain things in my life that I needed to get right. And after making some of those decisions in Bible college, the Lord immediately started working on my heart about missions. Countries that had no missionaries in certain regions, or just full cities that had not had a gospel preaching church for many, many years, started really stick out to me.
So that burden was for neglected areas or areas that really were in great need?
Well, the idea came from me doing some study on my own home church area. I noticed that around my home church, within a 30-minute radius of my home church, there was about 60 independent Baptist churches.
Wow.
And there was just many of them. And that wasn't including Methodist churches or anything else. And then I started talking to some of the other men that were in my dorm that felt led to go to Japan as a missionary, and they were talking about full regions that had no gospel witness whatsoever. And then Brother David Harris, the director there at BIMI, had wrote an article on the Tohoku region, which is where we're at right now, about how after a massive tsunami hit Sendai, Japan, many years ago, they were trying to find a church to try to reach out and help these people, and they were just not able to find one. And then that really burdened my heart for this area.
Wow. Well, you brought a wife and 3 kids. Tell me about them, where they're from.
My wife is from Michigan. I'm from Texas. We met in California, and now we're in Japan. My 3 kids, Joshua, who is our oldest, he is 8 years old. Our middle child, Lily, who is 5, and our youngest, Daisy, who is 4. The girls were born here in Japan, and Joshua was born back in the States.
Okay. So when did you actually arrive in Japan?
We arrived in 2018, right after the 4th of July, and we went to Kobe, Japan, and we did our language studies down there.
Right. And then how long have you studied the language?
Oh, I haven't stopped. Japanese is a language that is extraordinarily difficult. In fact, I've heard many missionaries say the first 30 years is the hardest. And so,
yeah.
Amen.
Yeah. So you're able, I've heard you speak, you seem to be able to communicate well with people, and it's just, like you said, it's an ongoing thing now. You'll never be like a national, I would assume?
Well, many people, it depends on what people would describe as fluency. I feel like once you're able to fully converse with somebody and have a conversation, to me that would be considered a type of fluency. Right now I can converse with people and have conversations. It's when the topic starts dipping into areas that I've never studied. And so that's really what you're studying consistently throughout your life.
Of course, church has its own language too. That's
true.
Different than being out in the community, I guess. So you came in 2018, went to language school. At some point, you ended up here, and that was fairly recently, like a year ago, or?
Yes, sir. When I was down there doing language school, I was struggling quite a bit with language school. In fact, if I were able to go back and do it again, I would have taken maybe a month or 2 before coming to the mission field and done some research into how to study the language. Because when I got into language school, I realized that I was trusting too much in language schools to tell me what I needed to know. And oftentimes they're set up for more tourist people that are coming here. And so I went through, had some struggles there. So I just decided after technically 5 years of doing language study that I just need to get out and get something started. I'm ready to see God start a new work. And so about 1.5 years ago, we moved up here. We took some time to search for a church. We ended up finding this building. It was a miracle to us. And after just a few months of just renovating it, we just immediately just started services, and we've been trucking ever since.
So from graduation till you got up here, how long did that take?
From graduation language school?
No, from graduation from Bible college till you get to this point, just now, really 1 year ago, starting a church.
I graduated in 2013 from college, and so we're looking at about 12 years. And so I was called to Japan my freshman year.
Wow.
I got in a closet. I had asked a friend of mine who was the son of a missionary. I wanted to be a missionary to Japan, but I wasn't sure how God called people. So I got counsel from him, and he's like, just go in the closet and just ask God to make it as clear as somebody's throwing a boulder at you. And I prayed that exact prayer. And the next day, Dr. Don Sis stood up in chapel to preach and looked right at me and said, "What's keeping you from going?" Mm-hmm. And so at the end of that service, I got down and I prayed and told God I'll go, and he's been faithful ever since.
So 12 years just to get to the point of starting. I mean, for someone in the States, they might think, graduate from college, I'll just go start a church and need to go out there. But you had to raise support. Then you had to come over here and start learning the language. And as I know from my daughter and son-in-law, you don't just learn the language, you have to learn the culture.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes.
And it seems like everything is so different. Everything is backwards. You drive on the wrong side of the road.
That's true.
The language is a Chinese base, I guess. It's different anyway. Everything in the store, you go buy something in the store, you don't recognize anything. The food looks different.
That's true. Yep.
So very, very different when you come here. So what are your expectations? Now, you just started and you've had a few people show up, 2 or 3 people. Mm-hmm. So what are your expectations? Do you even know what your expectations are?
I do and I don't at the same time. I had a missionary. To me, I feel it very wise as a young guy for me to lean off some of the older missionaries that have been here for a while, get advice from them, and try not to stray too much from it. I try to stray off and do something new, I'm more liable to fail. And so had a missionary give me advice. He said the first 10 people to a church is the hardest. Because here there's a group mentality culture to where they don't want to start a new group. They want to join a group. To start a new group, maybe look down upon. And so when you don't already have a group for them to come join, it makes it very difficult. You're looking for that few that see how wonderful a relationship with God is and want it more than having to worry about that group mentality. So once you get that core group of people, then people are more likely to attend or visit. They don't feel the pressure.
So what do you do to get that first group? How do you, and I know you're trying to figure that out now, how do you get that first group? Because kids, once they get to junior high and high school, that school dominates their lives. I mean, there's no time to do anything with them. Mm-hmm. People don't invite you to their home. People aren't sitting on the front porch drinking iced tea, and they have no Christian background. They're steeped in the Buddhism, the religion. Mm-hmm. So how do you get that first group?
Well, the answer is yes. You do everything. You do everything you possibly can. If I relied solely on passing out flyers, we'd be here for a very long time. And so one thing that we have done is we actually have our kids inside the Japanese school system, but have also worked it out to where technically their education base is homeschool. But they get to attend the Japanese school, being with friends during art time or something like that. If they have big activities. My son went on a field trip just a few days ago, and he was really excited about that. He's built a lot of friendships there. And in fact, from that field trip, my son invited a friend, and he was here yesterday for our kids' English program that we have here. And so what we've been doing is trying to meet people through avenues like that. Going out in the community, participating in community classes, community events, festivals, teaching English here, getting involved in their school programs, And I've actually went over people's houses and started talking to people outside their houses. And so I've had one invite me over for a barbecue one time. And so we've done pretty much anything you can think of. So,
but breaking that barrier is different than in America, there's no doubt. And the size of the churches in Japan is quite small compared to the States. I mean, it seems like there's a lot of churches, they've been doing a long time, they may have 12 or 15 people. A large church would be, what, 60 people? Or
a large church would be about 60 people. We have one church it's the largest church here in Japan. I think it runs around 200 to 300. It's the only one of its kind that I know of. There's another one that has about 100 that's been here for many years. And outside that, you're running anywhere between 30 to 60 people.
And that's in Newtown?
Cindy, Newtown. Yes, sir.
Yeah. Yeah. But the culture has changed also, because after the war, there were people that came and they were looked at as heroes. They were, or maybe not heroes, but they were looked at with great intrigue, and they wanted to know. They were very, very open. But people have long forgotten World War II. Now it's a different mentality. And the children are so dominated by the school system. There's a lot of unique challenges that you face here.
It's true. You know, after the war, General MacArthur made a statement that if we were to send 1,000 missionaries to Japan, Japan would be a Christian nation. It was a statement he made. We didn't do it. We didn't do it. There's a handful of people that came, and they saw great success. What he said was very true. But then the culture did shift, and the focus on education and work. Japanese people work tremendous hours, from early in the morning until late in the evening. And so, yeah, culture is a huge barrier.
Of course, they've had such small families, especially the cities, the larger population. They have such small families. From what I understand, they don't have enough workers. There's the labor force, even the population is shrinking.
Yes, sir. In fact, they're actually trying to push inviting foreigners to come work in Japan, offering visas to come do pretty much anything you can. I just got a piece of mail just last week that talked about the birth rate in Japan reached a new low. In fact, they're on a 9-year decrease. So they went from, when we were on deputation, we told churches that there's 127 million people in Japan. I'm heading back on furlough in a couple weeks, and I'm telling them there's 120 million. A 7 million drop in 7 years.
Wow.
And so
that is something. Now, the town you're in, I think most of northern Japan, you would say it's more rural, but there's how many, 300,000 in Hirosaki?
So in Hirosaki, it's hard to compare this, but I know that we do this in the States, so it can be easier to understand for Americans. But Hirosaki has 2 other smaller towns right off the outside. In fact, you probably passed through one of them as you were coming here. If you count up all of the populations here, there's 220,000 people in this one area. And this is the first Baptist church that it's ever had.
Something. So the Buddhist background, people don't understand. They don't go to church. There are no church buildings.
It's true.
To me, it's like when the Bible talks about paganism, it's very comparable.
It's very true. In fact, a lot of times when we have a visitor that come to church, I say, let's stand and sing, and they're kind of taken back. Like, what do you mean sing? I'm here to pray, possibly give. Singing, that's never something that we do when we go to a shrine. In fact, most Japanese people will say that they're Buddhist or Shinto, but they have no idea what it means. And in fact, if you ask them, what do you really believe about God? Well, I don't believe there's a God. If I go to a shrine, it's because culture and the group, that's where we're all going. And so it's very different, very different.
Certainly interesting. Well, certainly thankful for what you're doing. We're glad that you're here. You just have to stay in it for the long haul when you come to Japan.
Amen, amen.
Well, Brother Scott, thank you so much. I appreciate you taking this time with me, and we'll see what God does. You're going on furlough for a while, and then come back, roll up your sleeves, and
yes, sir. Keep on
get
trucking.
busy after that. All right.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Hey, thank you for listening today. God bless you. Bye.
Thank you for listening. If you enjoyed the podcast, consider sharing it with a friend. You can also follow at Dr. Townsley on Twitter or on Facebook at Jim Townsley.